Hey everybody, today I'm going to take you back to 2010 to look at one of the most brutal beats in the history of the World Series of Poker Main Event.
Thunderstruck! Gotta be heartbroken!
Let's get into it.
Back over to the 8 players at table 2 now. Jonathan Duhamel looks down at pocket jacks.
Duhamel craves action, and he says when you're bored, you raise a lot more. Well, here he's got a hand to raise with.
And he is going to raise it, $575,000. Now to Matt Affleck with pocket aces.
Hello, pocket aces. You go, Matt.
I think if he makes the final table, he might wear a Seattle Mariners tuxedo, Norman. And Matt on the button with a re-raise to $1,550,000.
We start with Jonathan Duhamel in the cutoff with pocket jacks. He makes a standard open raise to $575,000. And Matt Affleck, right behind him on the button, wakes up with pocket aces. He raises it up to $1.5 million, and so far, so good. Now, 2010 was the year that I made my deepest run. I got 141st. Actually, was a chip leader most of one day. I think it was day 5 or so. I actually remember being directly to Jonathan Duhamel's left on the exact bubble. And there were a lot of times where I was the biggest stack. He was the second biggest stack. We had a ton of short stacks at our table. He was opening a bunch of hands. I was 3-betting, I think like 5 times in a row. Just really, really pushing that bubble advantage and the fact that people don't like to bust out. And I just remember him always getting frustrated and folding, kind of hoping that I wouldn't do it the next time. But I was kind of young and relentless back then. Anyway, he's in the same spot with Matt Affleck to his left. With pocket jacks, he's certainly not going anywhere. There are 15 left in the main event. While ICM is a consideration, they're certainly not on the bubble, and jacks not going anywhere.
So now back to Duhamel
with tricky pocket jacks.
Raise.
And he says re-raise himself to just over $3.9 million.
Duhamel's interest is peaked, and Affleck could 5-bet it here, even go all in.
Matt Affleck with 2 aces against the pocket jacks of Duhamel. And Matt just with the call.
Well, Affleck is out-chipped by Duhamel, and he'd like to get as many of those chips as possible.
Now, you could just call here with pocket jacks, and I think that's what I would have done, especially given ICM implications. Yes, he's got a chip advantage over Matt Affleck, but not by much. You know, making the final table of the main event, not only is it worth so much from chipping up and laddering up in the payouts, but this was the first year of the November 9. The main event was played in July, and they would play down to a final table, and then they would stop, and you wouldn't play again until November, so they could live stream it on a delay. They felt like viewership was dropping off because so many people knew who won. This was in the era of a lot of sponsorship money being thrown around, and so making the November 9 was really valuable. So all of that would have been going through my head. I imagine it's going through his head as well. So I would just call here with jacks. He decides to 4-bet. And I actually want to point to maybe the most interesting part of this whole hand. Facing this 4-bet of almost $4 million in chips, Matt Affleck just calls. And I want to talk about this because I really, really like this call. Not only do I like it in a vacuum, in theory, but I really like what it says about Matt Affleck and his grit and toughness. Your opponent is repping a very, very strong range, but he's going to have kind of a polarized range. He's going to have some really strong preflop hands, and he's going to have some very weak hands. Now, the strong preflop hands, you're probably going to get all in with post-flop anyway. So you want to keep in his bluffs so you can win more money post-flop. Now, the reason I give Matt so much credit here is because, first of all, this was 2010. We didn't understand like just how good flatting with aces here really was. And also, I mean, this is the biggest stage he's ever been on at this point. He has a ton of chips, super deep in the main event, and just shoving all in here and kind of ending the sweat is really comfortable. It's really easy to want to do that. He instead decides to get uncomfortable, head to the flop, give his opponent a chance to suck out, but make the plus EV play that is going to earn him more money in the long run.
2 of the top 5 stacks see a flop of 10-9-7. Affleck still good with his aces. Duhamel picks up a gut shot. And he checks. Affleck.
Matt moves deliberately, but decisively.
With the aces. And Duhamel, a very interested observer. That's $5 million from Matt.
Affleck hoping Duhamel has a big pocket pair because he'll get at least 5 million more chips here.
And that's Buddy's looking a little nervous on the sidelines.
Duhamel's gonna call, and you know, if those chips fall over, someone's gotta yell Jenga.
We head to the 10-9-7 flop. Jonathan Duhamel flops an overpair with a gut shot, and this is about as good of a flop as he could have hoped for, short of flopping a jack. You know, even if he's behind, as you can see here, he's 27% equity with his 2 outs to the jack and 4 outs to the 8. He's usually going to have around 25% equity against better hands. There's only 2 times pot remaining. So I would be looking to get all the money in here if I were Duhamel. I think it's interesting to consider whether you bet a small to mid sizing, whether you check to check shove, trying to induce a bet from a hand like ace-5 suited, thinking that you have, as Duhamel, ace-king, ace-queen. Or I think it's worth considering just open jamming for 2x pot. I know that that sounds a little extreme, but you have to remember this is, again, the main event. ICM is a huge consideration. You don't want to give free cards. You'd like to just end the hand and take down this 8 million. And so if he has a hand like aces or kings, it's not really crazy to 2x pot jam and just end the hand. So if I were Duhamel, I think the play that I would choose would be to check shove, but I actually think it's really interesting to just overbet jam. You're not going to get many worse hands to call. You might get a hand like Jack 10 suited to call, which you dominate, a hand like 10-8 suited to call, which you dominate, but you also might get a hand like queens to fold, which is really, really valuable, obviously, when the pot is this big. You also deny some free cards, so on and so forth. So I think jamming is reasonable. I think his check is reasonable as well. He decides to check it over, and Affleck with his aces decides to bet 5 million. I think you could check back and continue the slow play because I would expect Duhamel is actually going to have a lot of missed ace-king or king-queen bluffs, and they're not going to have a ton of equity to improve. You don't mind letting them bluff later or letting them catch up to a worse pair. The pot is big. You almost surely have the best hand with aces. I can't really fault him for betting here. He bets 5 million, and it's back to Duhamel, and I would just rip it in here with pocket jacks. Yes, you're beat a lot, but what are you going to do on the turn? I think like you can't really avoid getting the money in here. You have 27% equity basically at worst, 25% equity-ish at worst. I think it's very likely when you 4-bet and then check this spot. Remember, they don't have to have aces and jacks pre-flop. Duhamel could have ace-2 suited. Affleck could have ace-5 suited. He could have king-queen. There are a lot of hands that they could each have that would need to bluff in this situation. And a lot of hands that Duhamel could have that need to check fold. Even a hand like ace-king is really uncomfortable on this 10-high flop when your 4-bet gets called. So I would shove here. Yes, sometimes this is going to happen. You're going to get your money in bad, but you're also going to deny equity to a hand like ace-5. There's so much in the pot already. I would just shove it in and try to take it down. Instead, Duhamel calls, and we head to the turn.
Well, he does make the call. Over 18 million in the middle.
Big pot now, and we could have a big change in the pecking order.
Turn card is a queen of diamonds. Duhamel now with an up and down straight draw. Matt's ace is still good, though.
Yeah, that card line gives Duhamel more outs if he thinks he's up against a big pair or a set.
Duhamel checks again.
Affleck in his familiar pose.
All in.
He says all in for 11.6 million.
The turn is the queen of diamonds, giving Duhamel an open-ender now. You can see his equity drop from 27 to 21%. That's because there's only one card to come, but this is kind of an improvement for him. There's 11.5 million effective in stacks, and there's 18.5 million in the pot. It's important to keep in mind, by the way, in these tournament situations, especially, these players involved are young. I was young back then, and we played a lot of online poker. Counting the pot, obviously it's so critically important, but it's easy to lose track of the pot when it's live poker and the chips are flying. Whether or not they know their exact pot odds at this moment, I think they could be a little bit off. And I think that's worth keeping in mind. Oftentimes what I will do is, let's say I'm Duhamel and I check here and I face the all-in from Affleck. That's the point where I would, take my time and try to figure out, how much money went in. But I don't always, in the moment, have their stack counted down. I don't always have my stack counted down. I don't always know exactly how much is in the pot. Duhamel decides to check. I think I like the check. You're very often going to be up against a better hand or a hand like ace-5 that has very little equity. You might be able to get it to bluff after it goes check and you make your straight on the river. So I like this check from Duhamel now that he's gotten here this way, which I didn't really love. And Affleck with aces, I think just has to shove it in. There's so much in the pot. He probably has the best hand. Duhamel's going to have some amount of equity like he does here, and just taking it down is what you really want. Now, Duhamel has a tough decision. He is counting the pot. He's looking at stacks. And he's doing the math. There's 11.5 million roughly left to call. There is 18.5 in the middle plus the 11.5 from Affleck. Basically, you're getting a little bit worse than 3-to-1 odds here, which means that you need a little bit more than 25% equity. It actually works out to just under 28% equity that Duhamel needs here to make this call. As we can see, he has 21% equity, so he doesn't have the equity to call against Matt Affleck's actual hand. I think in reality, his equity is going to be about this most of the time. Occasionally, he'll see a hand like Jack 10 and I'll have him crushed, but I think that's going to be very rare, especially blocking 2 jacks. So I think you can expect to have maybe in the neighborhood of 23, 24% equity on average. And the fact is, you need 28% equity to call. But you actually need more than that when you factor in the main event ICM situation. You really don't want to put your whole stack at risk here. I do think this should be a fold for Duhamel, but in the end, he does his math and he decides to make the call, and you can see what happens.
So now back to Duhamel with the jacks and the up and down straight draw.
A huge decision for Duhamel. He's not getting the right price to call, and he'd be left with just over 8 million chips if he loses. He's got to believe Matt wouldn't push here with anything less than aces, kings, or a set, no?
Duhamel thinking very seriously about this.
Call.
And makes the call.
Tens and nines.
Your kings, right?
I'm shocked by the call on. Look at the pot. Affleck on the brink of becoming the huge chip leader. Duhamel, if he gets lucky, would be an overwhelming chip leader.
So Affleck way ahead, one card away from putting a huge hurt on Duhamel. Everyone on pins and needles here at the Rio. This will be the biggest river card of the tournament.
Yeah, a defining moment here late at this main event, Lon. Jonathan Duhamel just wants to disappear inside that hood if he could. Matt Affleck is going to have 41 million chips or no chips. He needs to dodge a king, jack, or 8.
The river card. Oh, is an 8! A crushing blow to Matt Affleck. Duhamel hit his card and eliminates young Matt Affleck.
He's got to be heartbroken.
Affleck thunderstruck.
Last year, the blow-up, and he finished 80th. This year, the bad beat, and he finishes 15th.
Affleck so close to the prize. He had overcome some earlier setbacks only to fight back and become a major factor again, but now he's gone.
It's as if he's in shock. It's as if he can't leave.
Matt Affleck will try once again to deal with the realization of a dream gone amiss and gets a well-deserved round of applause from the crowd here in the Rio Poker Room as he finally makes his way to the exit. One man's bounty is another man's demise.
A delayed, understandable outburst from Matt.
This $42 million pot put Duhamel in a commanding chip leading position with 14 left in the main event, and the rest is history. Hope you enjoyed this breakdown. It was fun to look back at this year of the main event, which was the most exciting main event year for me, given my own run in it. And also a good friend of mine, Jason Sentai, who made the final table and the November 9. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care and good luck.
And Matt has come back in the room to say his goodbyes.
Now, what a gesture here from Matt Affleck. In the wake of that brutal bust out, he felt he did not leave the stage in the proper manner, so he comes back and does the right thing.
Matt fought back from a near crippling blow earlier in the main event to once again be a player, but like more than 7,300 before him, he'll have to patiently wait for another opportunity.
Hey, you're good. Good luck.
Again. Bad call, man.
A lot of maturity from the 23-year-old. Matt, you played your heart out and you done us proud.